First contact. Ambassador Xilrek had spent 3 centuries studying emerging civilizations. In all that time, nothing had prepared them for humanity's ships. The elderly Vexians stood before the Galactic Council's Emergence Committee, their crystalline appendages trembling slightly as they delivered their report. The council chamber's bioluminescent walls pulsed with a gentle azure glow, reflecting off the varied forms of 24 different species representatives. Distinguished members of the council, Xilrek began, I must strongly advise against dismissing the human fleet as primitive. Yes, their ships lack the aesthetic refinement we've come to expect from spacefaring races. Yes, they still rely on reaction mass for some maneuvering. But there's something different about their approach to ship design. A ripple of dismissive clicks and whistles filled the chamber. Councillor Merrick's, a towering arthropoid from the militant Carib Empire, raised a gleaming appendage. Ambassador, with all due respect to your experience, I've reviewed the scan data myself. Their ships are a hodgepodge of mixed technologies. Some still use chemical thrusters alongside gravity drives. They haven't even standardized their weapon systems. How can such an inconsistent fleet pose any serious consideration? Xilrek's crystalline form shifted to a deeper blue, a sign of grave concern among their species. That's precisely what troubles me, Counselor. The humans don't standardize their ships because each one is a prototype, an experiment. In the 3 years since they achieved FTL travel, they'd produced 47 distinct classes of warships. For comparison, the Carib Empire has used the same 3 basic hull designs for the past millennium. The chamber grew quieter as Xilrek continued. Their ships aren't crude, they're laboratories. Each vessel tests different combinations of technologies, different approaches to solving the challenges of space combat. They're treating their entire fleet as a massive research project. High Admiral Zena of the Pyrrhian Collective leaned forward, her bioluminescent patterns showing intense interest. Surely such an approach leaves them vulnerable. Without standardization, their logistics must be a nightmare. That's the most fascinating part, Xilrek replied. They've somehow developed a manufacturing base capable of producing custom components at nearly the same rate as standardized parts. Their industrial capabilities don't match our raw output, but their flexibility is unprecedented. The ambassador activated a holographic display, showing the evolution of human ship designs over the past 3 years. Watch how each new class incorporates lessons from its predecessors while testing new approaches. They're not building a fleet. They're conducting thousands of experiments in real time. And the results? Councillor Merrick's asked, their earlier dismissiveness replaced by cautious curiosity. In the dozen minor skirmishes they've had with pirates and rogue elements, their ships have displayed capabilities well beyond what our initial assessments suggested possible. They're using supposedly primitive technologies in ways we never considered. Their mixed technology approach allows them to bypass many of our standard defensive systems. The chamber erupted in concerned murmuring. Xilrek raised their voice slightly to be heard. I've spent my career studying how civilizations approach the challenges of space. The humans, they're not following any pattern we've seen before. They're not trying to catch up to our level of technology. They're questioning our basic assumptions about how ships should work. What do you recommend? High Admiral Zena asked. Immediate diplomatic engagement and technology exchange programs. If we treat them as primitives to be dismissed or conquered, I fear we'll learn too late why their ships look so strange to our eyes. They're not building warships according to our standards because they're not trying to match our capabilities. They're trying to render them obsolete. As the council chamber descended into heated debate, Xilrek gazed at the rotating hologram of the latest human vessel. Its asymmetric design and seemingly haphazard arrangement of systems offended every aesthetic and engineering principle they'd learned. Yet something about it filled them with both wonder and dread, like watching an apex predator evolve in real time. The humans weren't just joining galactic civilization. They were rewriting the rules of space warfare with every ship they launched. And Xilrek couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy wasn't ready for what would happen when someone pushed them too far. The warning signs. Captain Nerva of the Carib Empire's 7th Border Fleet had built her career on being right. Her predictions about enemy movements and tactical analyses had earned her rapid promotion and respect among her peers. But as she studied the aftermath of the latest skirmish with human forces, she felt something she hadn't experienced in decades: doubt. The battle recording played again in her command center. A human corvette, badly damaged and seemingly crippled, had been cornered by 3 of her patrol cruisers. Standard doctrine called for disabled vessels to be tractored in for capture. But when her ships had activated their tractor beams, the corvette had done something impossible. "Play it again," she ordered. "Quarter speed." The hologram showed the human ship's hull suddenly rippling, panels shifting and reconfiguring. What had appeared to be battle damage revealed itself as deliberate modularity. The corvette shed its outer layer like a snake's skin, leaving the tractor beams grasping empty debris, while a sleeker form emerged and accelerated away. "Analysis," she asked her tactical officer. "Still inconclusive, Captain. The outer hull wasn't just armor. It contained powered systems, weapons emplacements, even life support components. They designed their ship to be able to abandon approximately 40% of its mass and functionality while retaining core operations." Nerva's inner eyelids flickered in agitation. Who designs a ship to be intentionally discarded? The resource waste alone. "That's not all," her engineer interrupted, bringing up detailed scans. "The debris field was engineered. When our closest cruiser pursued, components from the abandoned hull section reactivated. They formed a temporary navigational hazard that forced our ship off course. Their crippled state was a trap," Nerva concluded. "They sacrificed nearly half their ship to escape, but also turned that sacrifice into a tactical advantage." She paused the recording on an image of the human vessel's escape. How many other capabilities are their ships hiding? The question haunted her as reports began flowing in from across the sector. A human diplomatic vessel had somehow passed through a Pyrrhian blockade by briefly phasing out of normal space, technology that should have required more power than their entire ship could generate. A small human mining craft had survived a direct hit from a pirate dreadnought by rapidly rerouting structural integrity fields in ways that defied standard physics models. Each incident seemed minor in isolation, but Nerva had spent too long studying warfare not to see the pattern. The humans weren't just building ships, they were conducting live-fire experiments. Every encounter, win or lose, was teaching them something new. She compiled her findings into a report and transmitted it up the chain of command with the highest priority designation. The response came back within hours. Her concerns were noted, but deemed excessive. Human ships were still technologically inferior by every measurable standard. Their occasional surprising capabilities were viewed as flukes, not indicators of a revolutionary approach to space combat. But as Nerva studied the recording one final time, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were all missing the point. The humans weren't trying to match Carib technology. They were exploring possibilities her people had never even considered. Their ships looked crude because they were optimized for adaptation rather than perfection. She sent a private message to several trusted colleagues in other fleets, warning them to be cautious in any encounters with human vessels. The humans' apparent weakness might be their greatest strength. They had nothing to unlearn, no preconceptions about what ships could or couldn't do. Every engagement was teaching them, and they were learning fast. As she filed her final report on the incident, Nerva added a personal notation. "In all my years of service, I've never encountered an enemy that treats warfare like a research project. The humans aren't trying to win battles. They're trying to revolutionize how battles are fought. And I fear by the time we understand what they're doing, it will be too late to counter it." Breaking point. Grand Admiral Voss of the Combined Sector Defense Fleet had always prided himself on his strategic acumen. But as he stared at the tactical display, showing the movements of human ships throughout contested space, he felt his certainty crumbling. "They're not attacking our strong points," he muttered, his scaled fingers tracing the holographic paths. "They're not even attacking our weak points. They're testing our responses. His executive officer, Commander Thex, shifted uncomfortably. Sir, the Coalition Council is demanding immediate action. 3 trade routes have been disrupted by human probing attacks. The merchant guilds are losing patience. Voss's inner membranes flickered in irritation. They're losing patience because they don't understand what they're seeing. Look at this pattern. He highlighted a series of seemingly random human ship movements. Each incursion uses different ship configurations, different tactical approaches. They're not trying to win territory. They're gathering data. Data for what, sir? For this. Voss expanded the display to show the latest intelligence. A massive human fleet had emerged from their territory, but it wasn't like anything they'd seen before. Instead of organized battle groups, it appeared to be a chaotic mix of different ship classes, sizes, and configurations. Their fleet structure makes no sense, Thex observed. No standardization, no clear chain of command. It's like they threw together whatever ships they had available. No, Voss said quietly. It's exactly what they want us to think. He zoomed in on individual vessels. Look closer. Each ship is different, yes, but they're all variations on designs they've tested against us in smaller engagements. They've taken everything they learned and built an entire fleet of ships specifically engineered to exploit weaknesses they've discovered in our defenses. The implications hit Thex like a physical blow. The probing attacks were never about territory or resources. They were research missions every time we drove them off. Every time we thought we were demonstrating our superiority, we were actually helping them perfect their designs. Before Thex could respond, the tactical display erupted with new alerts. The human fleet had suddenly accelerated, splitting into smaller groups that seemed to move with impossible coordination. Ships that appeared damaged or outdated began revealing hidden capabilities, their supposedly crude designs concealing cutting-edge technology. Battle stations, Voss ordered, his voice grave. And send word to the council. Tell them. He paused, watching as the human ships began their approach. Tell them we gravely underestimated what we were dealing with. The humans weren't building a fleet to fight us. They were building a fleet to revolutionize warfare itself. The first shots were fired moments later. Human vessels darted through the Coalition's carefully planned defensive screens like water through a sieve. Ships that should have been easy targets proved nearly impossible to lock onto, their systems constantly shifting and adapting. What appeared to be random chaos in their formation revealed itself as an intricately choreographed dance, each vessel's movements complementing the others in ways that Coalition tactical computers struggled to predict. How are they coordinating like this? Thex demanded, watching as another Coalition battle group fell into disarray. Their communication should be limited by light speed just like ours. Voss watched as a human destroyer, seemingly crippled, suddenly reconfigured itself mid-battle into a completely different class of vessel. They're not just communicating, they're improvising. Every ship is capable of operating independently, but they've somehow trained their crews to think as one without direct coordination. They're not following a battle plan. They're creating it as they go. As the battle raged on, Voss realized with growing dread that this was more than just an attack. It was a demonstration. The humans were showing the galaxy exactly what they'd been working toward with all their seemingly primitive and haphazard ship designs. They hadn't been struggling to catch up to Coalition technology. They'd been developing an entirely new paradigm of space warfare. Adaptive warfare. Fleet Commander Sarah Chen watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the TNS Prometheus, humanity's first true metamorphic battleship. The vessel hummed around her, its structure constantly micro-adjusting as combat algorithms refined its form for maximum effectiveness. Status report, she ordered, her eyes fixed on the tactical display, showing the Coalition fleet's increasingly desperate attempts to counter human battle tactics. Phase 1 complete, Commander, her XO reported. The Coalition is still trying to adapt to our initial configurations. Their tactical computers are failing to predict our ship's transformation capabilities. Chen nodded, remembering the years of preparation that had led to this moment. While the galaxy's established powers had mocked humanity's seemingly crude and inconsistent ship designs, they had been perfecting the art of adaptive warfare. "Launch Phase 2, she commanded. "Full spectrum deployment." Across the battlefield, human ships began their carefully choreographed metamorphosis. Vessels that had appeared to be conventional destroyers suddenly split apart, revealing themselves as carrier groups of smaller craft. Lumbering freighters transformed into agile battlecruisers. What the Coalition had dismissed as battle damage or poor engineering was revealed as intentional design features, allowing human ships to radically alter their capabilities mid-combat. Coalition forces are attempting to establish a defensive perimeter, Tactical reported. "They're finally beginning to realize our ships aren't just changing shape, they're evolving their tactics in real time." Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Coalition's mighty fleets, with their standardized designs and rigid tactical doctrines, were facing an enemy that refused to fight according to established rules. Every human vessel was a prototype, every crew trained to think creatively rather than follow conventional wisdom. "Ma'am, communications cut in. We're intercepting Coalition tactical communications. They're trying to analyze our pattern recognition algorithms." "Let them try," Chen replied. "They're still thinking in terms of fixed patterns. They haven't realized that our ship's transformations aren't pre-programmed. They're emergent responses to battlefield conditions." The Prometheus shuddered as it executed another transformation, its hull flowing like liquid metal as it adapted to counter a Coalition battlegroup's attack formation. What looked like chaos to their enemies was actually the result of years of research into biomimetic engineering and swarm intelligence. "Coalition flagship is launching a concentrated attack," Tactical announced. "They're trying to overwhelm our adaptation capabilities with sheer firepower." Chen watched as the massive Coalition dreadnought brought its main guns to bear. In previous eras, such firepower would have been decisive. But humanity had learned early on that trying to match the established powers in traditional ship-to-ship combat would be futile. "Execute Maneuver Hydra," she ordered. The Prometheus's response was immediate and stunning. Instead of attempting to tank the incoming fire or evade, the ship literally split itself into multiple smaller vessels, each one independently capable of combat operations. The Coalition's massive energy blast passed harmlessly through the gaps between the separated sections, while the newly formed squadron of smaller ships launched a coordinated counterattack from multiple vectors. "Coalition forces are falling back," Tactical reported with barely contained excitement. "Their command and control systems can't keep up with our rate of adaptation." Chen knew this was the crucial moment. The Coalition wasn't just losing a battle. They were witnessing the obsolescence of their entire approach to warfare. Every tactic they had perfected over centuries was being countered by ships that could literally reshape themselves in response to threats. Paradigm shift. The Galactic Council's emergency session was the most well-attended in recent memory. Representatives from hundreds of species crowded the ancient chamber, their attention fixed on the holographic display showing footage from the recent battle. Ambassador Xilrek stood at the podium, their crystalline form glowing with a mix of vindication and concern. "As I warned this council 3 years ago, humanity's approach to shipbuilding was not primitive, it was revolutionary. What you are watching is not just a military defeat, but the end of an era in galactic warfare." The footage showed human ships performing maneuvers that defied conventional military doctrine. Vessels splitting apart and recombining, changing their fundamental structure to adapt to threats in real time, coordinating in ways that seemed to ignore the traditional limitations of space combat. The Coalition's defeat was not due to superior firepower or advanced technology, Xilrek continued. It was due to humanity's fundamentally different way of thinking about space warfare. While we perfected our existing designs, they questioned basic assumptions we had taken for granted for millennia. High Admiral Zena, who had survived the battle, stepped forward to address the council. "Their ships are not simply weapons, they are experiments in progress. Each vessel is capable of learning and adapting, not just through computer systems, but through crews trained to think creatively and act independently. They turned our greatest strength, our standardization and precision, into a weakness. The chamber erupted in concerned murmuring. A Carad representative raised their voice above the din. Then we must adapt. Build our own transforming ships, copy their technology. You still don't understand, Zilrek interrupted. The human ships we faced aren't their endpoint. They're just the beginning. By the time we could copy these designs, they will have moved on to something even more innovative. They're not trying to perfect a single approach. They're constantly exploring new possibilities. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just won a battle. They had demonstrated that the very nature of space warfare could be reimagined. Every assumption about ship design, tactical doctrine, and military organization was now open to question. Captain Nerva, newly promoted after her early warnings about human capabilities, took the podium next. We have two choices. We can continue to view humanity as a threat and face more defeats as they continue to innovate, or we can accept their invitation to collaborate and learn from each other. Invitation. Several council members asked simultaneously. Nerva activated a new hologram, a transmission from Fleet Commander Chen of the human forces. The human officer's image stood tall and confident, but her expression was one of openness rather than triumph. The purpose of our demonstration was not to establish dominance. Chen's recorded message began. It was to show that there are endless possibilities for advancement when we free ourselves from conventional thinking. We invite all species to join us in exploring these possibilities. Our adaptable ship designs aren't meant to win wars. They're meant to revolutionize how we approach the challenges of space. As the message ended, the council chamber buzzed with discussion. The galaxy's balance of power hadn't just shifted, the very rules of the game had changed. Humanity had proven that true innovation wasn't about incremental improvements to existing technology, but about daring to question fundamental assumptions. Ambassador Xilrek's final words to the council summed up the historic moment. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their transforming ships or adaptive tactics. It was their willingness to imagine possibilities that we, in our certainty and tradition, had never even considered. They didn't beat us with superior technology. They beat us with superior imagination. And now they're offering to share that gift with all of us. The vote that followed was nearly unanimous. The galaxy would never be the same, and perhaps that was exactly what it needed. As representatives filed out of the chamber, many found themselves looking at their own ships with new eyes, wondering what other possibilities they had missed in their pursuit of perfection rather than innovation. The age of standardized space warfare was over. The age of endless possibility had begun.